My name is Sunny Mullen. I am the Director of Outreach with Help Hope Live. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for today's Hope Talk, Beginner's Guide to Service Dogs. We are going to give people a minute to join the room, and then we will get started with our conversation. So please hold tight. And as a matter of housekeeping, this session is being recorded and will live on our YouTube page after tomorrow. So there will be access to it. So let's give everyone about a minute to join, and we will get started with this discussion. Thank you so much for being here today. All right, so we have a good group joining us, and as people come in, there is a few points of housekeeping. As I mentioned, this is being recorded, so you will be able to access this after today. It will be sent out through email. It will live on our YouTube page. And also for this session currently, there is a Q&A button where you can ask questions of all of the panelists during the conversation. There's also a chat feature where you can chat amongst yourselves or the panelists. So please feel free to engage in the conversation as well. And we appreciate you all being here. So with that, we are going to get started. Again, my name is Sunny Mullen. I'm the Director of Outreach with Help Hope Live. For those of you not familiar, we are a national nonprofit that helps individuals fundraise toward their medical expenses and related costs, such as service dogs. And we are here today to talk about just that, service dogs, with Kristin Hartness and Angela Rozewski. Kristin is with Canines for Disabled Kids, and Angela is one of our clients' moms who has had a service dog in their household for well over 10 years at this point. And so I'm going to give each of them a moment to introduce themselves. Kristin?
Hi, thanks so much for having me today. I really appreciate the opportunity. So I'm the Executive Director of Canines for Disabled Kids, and we are a national nonprofit that helps people before and after they get their service dogs. We want to help make sure that people are fully prepared for getting their service dogs, what kind of dog they're going to need, all of that, and then to help after they receive their service dogs to make sure that they get the ongoing support that they need. One thing about our program is that we never charge costs to the individuals, to the families that we're working with. So talking with me is a good place to start. We hope you'll start with us in one of our teams, but we are based on the East Coast. So if you're not on the East Coast, it's often best to reach us by email.
Awesome. And Angela?
Hi, I'm Angela, and my son is medically fragile and has a lot of health issues. And I have recently started getting a lot of health issues too. So we have had a service dog for many years, over a decade, and we're on our second one now. And we use Help Hope Live for a lot of fundraising for Nestle, our current service dog, for vet things and for just a lot of different things, for training, for boarding, things like that. So they've been such a huge help in making sure that we can get the money and save it and use it for future as well.
Thank you so much. And Angela, since you guys have had service dogs in your household for so long now, when did Stryder get his first service dog, and what led you guys to that decision? How did you go about getting your first service dog?
So I had started researching it because he's got a lot of health issues. He has epilepsy, which was the biggest thing. And I started asking questions, actually to Kristin way back when, over 10 years ago, and some other people to figure out what we would use a service dog for, what kind of things that the dog would do, and also which organization should we go through, because I knew I didn't know how to train it. I didn't know what to do with a service dog. I didn't, know anything really. So we went through an organization at that point, and my son was 6 at the time. He's 17 now. So we've come a long way. And in the beginning, it was a 3-person team because he was not old enough or healthy enough to really take care of the dog and use it as a service animal himself. So that's how we got started.
And Kristin, as we just literally before this call found out, Angela was reaching out to you well over 10 years ago. What does that look like when a family reaches out to you? What are those first steps to even thinking about getting a service dog?
It often just starts with a curiosity. Sometimes a family has heard about another child with a similar disability or with similar symptoms that they've said, oh, another family is using a dog. Sometimes somebody in the medical profession has mentioned it. Sometimes they've seen something on TV in a movie or whatever, and it just starts that question. And so we like to just start at the beginning, talk about what is the disability, how is it impacting the individual, where are the things that the family or the individual wants to get more independent on, have more access to. And from there, we start to build a profile. What are the things you need? And then help them through that process. It can take, now, we talked, 10 years ago, it didn't take that long to get the first service dog, but some families, it can take a while. I can talk to families and they're ready to go within a few weeks. I talked to other families who gather information and then put it on the shelf and then call back. It's really important to know that it's at your time frame. There's not a time frame from our end. It's your time frame, so that if you want to just gather information and then sit on it, you can do that. If you want to gather and run, you can do that too. But it's just a conversation to start.
And then how does Canines for Disabled Kids help the family from that first phone call? What are those steps? I know you're just one of many organizations that people use, but with you being our expert here today, what would you?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that makes our organization a little different from a lot of other sources is that we are not a training program.
Mm-hmm.
So most sources, you're going to talk with somebody about obtaining a service dog. The majority of those conversations are currently happening with training programs. One of the things about us is that because we're not a training program, we're not trying to sell you on our product. We're trying to find the right fit for you in the industry. And there's a lot of different options. So talking with you, learning about how your family, as your family resources, talking about the different options, working potentially with a program, potentially working in an owner assisted situation, but always going through that process step by step with you. We are going to stay with you the entire way. So first, just general curiosity. Then we build a skill set profile. Then when you know which direction you want to go in, for example, looking at a training program, we'll produce a list of training programs across the country that can do what you need. We'll then give you some tools to help you compare those programs. Just because it's the right program for family A doesn't mean it's the right program for someone else. We want to find the right match for you. Once then there'll be an application process through the training program. The majority of the time there's going to be fundraising. And so that's a key piece. We offer a scholarship as well, but we always encourage people to work with you chuckle, but you're right at the top of my, and do this next, because we want to make sure that people have the resources to be able to fundraise appropriately for the service animal. And then we will help them after they get their dog as well, so that conversation for us doesn't ever stop.
Yeah. And Angela, I know we've talked before about Stryder. He's now on his second service dog, and having dogs at different periods in your life and what that looks like even. And as Kristin said, the dog needs to fit the time and the person. How has that affected Stryder as he's went from his first dog to his second dog?
When we first got Keebler, we got him from an organization. We went through a whole training process for 14 days, and he got to help and train with it. But like I said, he was too young to be the only handler. So he was in a 3-person team. And as he grew up and had Keebler and he got into high school, Keebler started in kindergarten with him, and then he went into high school with him. So transition. There was a lot of transitioning. He had one-on-one aides in the beginning that handled the dog. I worked at the school with him for a while, so I was able to handle the dog. And then as he got into high school, he was able to handle Keebler himself. And then we got Nestle while Keebler was still alive, and unfortunately he passed away not too long ago. But Keebler was able to kind of help train Nestle in the beginning. And so Stryder got to see that process and kind of learn what Nestle was capable of in different ways. And she is totally the opposite of Keebler in a lot of ways. We used to call Keebler Eeyore because he just would mope around and just want to be pet here and there. But he was so calm and so nice. And Nestle, we call her Tigger. So she's completely the opposite, but she learns way faster than even he did. She's just got a lot more energy. And so he's learned to kind of work with that and teach her new tricks, either things that he can get from her or just fun things, no matter which way it is. He's able to ask her to come get me when he wants to, or play hide and seek, or just get her to walk on her hind feet for fun. So there's been a lot of differences, and we chose to do an owner assist training. So we had a trainer come this time and help with the tasks and things like that. So it's been night and day, but I wouldn't have started this way in the beginning, especially back then when service dogs were totally different, as far as people knowing and learning about them. So now that we kind of know what we're doing, we went through that 2-week class to kind of learn about the laws and how to advocate for yourself and how to, what tasks that he really needed, because it's changed a lot, from the beginning, what he needed then and what he needs now.
So before I get to my next question, which you were just leading into, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the theme of Keebler to Nestle to what's the next chocolate product we can have.
Well, we actually had a chocolate lab, and we called her Hershey.
Of course,
So, and
there you go.
yeah, I named her, and then Keebler came with his name, and then
Oh wow,
Stryder named Nestle.
perfect,
So,
perfect,
there's definitely a theme.
nice. But so as
Going with
going back to what you were mentioning though, the services. So what does Nestle do for Stryder? And then, I mean, what maybe when Stryder was younger, what did Keebler do for Stryder? What are the actual services the dogs are performing?
Well, when we first started, we were looking for epilepsy dog, a dog that would let us know when Stryder is going to have seizures, which was a thing that just nobody heard of really way back then, how to do it and, train. They have to have a natural ability before you can start training how to have them alert to you, and so we had to learn how to do that. And he did balance work, and so he'd be able to just kind of, he would guide him down and up the stairs a little bit, not full on, he's got to hold on to him and, things like that. But, and then picking up things as he needed, because he was pretty much wheelchair bound for a long time. And so he needed those services. And then Keebler just started naturally alerting to other medical things when his oxygen would drop, when his blood pressure was too high or too low, his pulse, things like that. So those are things that Keebler actually taught Nestle how to do. So she'll alert to me even quite a bit, because my blood pressure, everything, and my oxygen goes quite low. So and then we're teaching her other tasks, how to, open doors, and because she's so smart and her drive is so big and her energy, we're going to continue teaching her different tasks as they come along, and also different tricks, just
Yeah,
because, Stryder's 17 and thinks
yeah.
that's fun.
And forgive me, but is Stryder verbal?
He is verbal. He can talk very clearly. He
Okay.
has a lot of processing stuff. So he doesn't talk. He does not have conversations with people. He doesn't, it's really hard to explain, but the service dogs, both of them, because they went to school with Stryder, we allowed people to pet them. They knew how to task, even though they were being pet. Both of them have known that. Some people choose to not have them be pet in public, but our thing too, because he is so nonverbal and conversations don't come easily to him, that was one way to bring people to him so he could talk and explain what tasks and things like that. At school, nobody's allowed to pet them except on the last day of school.
Nice.
But
Nice.
kids are going to pet them anyway, and actually the teachers do want to even more.
So that's
So,
why I was wondering how Stryder communicates with the dogs, or how is he asking for things? Has he learned that's, I'm sure, his own language maybe with the dogs?
well, he does. Yeah, he does. And it's usually just one word that he teaches, and it's hand signals for him.
Okay.
So it's hard for me sometimes. I don't know,
Yeah.
because especially with
Neural
Nestle,
language that you're not
yeah,
privy to.
right. And Nestle is so smart that he can teach her something in just a couple tries. And then I'm like, wait a minute, what's this? How are we doing this?
You're
Or
not
what
caught
is,
up yet. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
So,
man.
it's
That's
become
a,
a good
Yeah. Go
open.
ahead, Kristin.
I was going to say that's a really important piece, though, about the difference between a facilitated partner, like you started with. When you start with a young child, that dog is working in conjunction with the parents. They're interacting with the parents. The parents are receiving data and acting on it. But when you work into and the transition of working into an independent partnership, this is no longer a family dog. When this dog finishes training for this family, it will stop being, the interactions with mom will deteriorate. That if the focus will have to be, for an independent partnership, will have to be completely on the individual, not on that facilitator. It's not that there's not interactions in the home, but it changes. It's a significant change, and some of the things you've been talking about are some of those. So how I communicate with my service dog might be verbal, it might be hand signals. Even though there's someone else in the house, they don't need to know those words, even if they're my backup handler, which is what mom's becoming now, is a backup handler instead of a primary handler. And so having that communication work for the primary, and then having the secondary, the backup handler, know what they need to know, but not know what they don't need to know, is a big transition piece. And being able to meet the needs of both people is really important, whether that's hand signals, computer devices, or verbal.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly true. And that's what we're transitioning to, that I really don't know what I used to know in the beginning with Nestle and the commands and things. I know the basics, obviously, and like you said, the important things, but I'm way far behind now, even, and especially because she does learn fast, that he's teaching her all kinds of things, and it's fun to watch, but
Sure.
it's a different role, definitely.
And Kristin, Angela was talking about Stryder bringing Nestle to school. And I know you've explained to me a lot about what Canines for Disabled Kids does in the community. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys do to help train the dogs when they're coming out into the community and into public like that?
So the dogs, in the industry is training the dogs to be um, they're access tools. Let me start there. They're access tools like our wheelchairs, our walkers, our eyeglasses. They're things that help us access our environment, but they are not the point of the environment. They're not supposed to be flashy. They can't be aggressive. They can't be protective in any way. They're supposed to be an extension of who we are. They are living tools. And yes, most people are very interested in meeting and talking about our service animals. Most service dog users love to talk about their service animals when it's appropriate. So we do encourage people to ask, but to also to be prepared that the answer might be no. But especially with kids, we find that I say it's the frosting on the cupcake. That's that icebreaker piece that's secondary to to the skill set, that what makes the service animal a service animal. So that's important for the dogs to know commands when that it's okay to say hello or to meet somebody, but that it's a coffee. It's not, we can't play in public. They're not having recess in public spaces where dogs are not normally allowed because they're there to work. But we also want to train environments as well, because we want to make sure, to your point earlier, Angela, that school, we often recommend that school is a no ask zone. So everybody can focus on learning while they're there. But we also want to make sure that when they do have an appropriate time to meet the dog, but the people know how to appropriately meet a dog and respect that this is a tool that they're meeting, that yes, it's an icebreaker, but they're not making friends with the dog, they're making friends with the person. And so having all of those pieces coming together is really important. But it's also important, and I'm just going to comment on this because Angela was in a situation where they got another bonus, right? When we have a facilitated team or an independent team, we have access to public environments, to the schools, to the businesses, to the restaurants and such, because our tool is working and under our control. The facilities by law do not have to take any responsibility. So it's unusual and unlikely that the majority of schools would allow for an aide or someone on the property to handle the dog short of a 911 situation. It's obviously not unheard of, but it's not something that can be required of them. And that's important for us to know on two fronts. It's important because there's the law piece of it, but it's also important because most dogs and most training programs will not train for lots of different handlers. So you usually have one handler and a backup handler. In the case of parents, you might have two guardians, but you don't usually have a third, a fourth, a fifth. You don't usually do a lot of retraining on that because most dogs will not handle that process well of constantly changing handlers. So thrilled that you had that bonus, but we just want to note that we want to take bonuses when we get them, but we want to know that they are bonuses.
Right. No, and that's exactly true. We've been very fortunate with our school district to not have any problems. They had assemblies each year to tell everybody and talk about the service dog and not to touch, not to talk, not to just ignore. You're going to always have people that don't follow those rules. And so we prepare for those. But yeah, we've been very fortunate because a lot of places, a lot of schools don't allow another handler. My son has had a nurse sitting with him for many years. And so, and we've been friends. He had to have, bus training, and, there's a lot of things you have to think about when you send a dog to school, whether with you as a handler. Some parents go to school as handlers, which I was able to do for a while because he needed a one-on-one aide. I was his one-on-one aide. So that worked really well too. But there's a lot of things, he would have to ride the bus. So we went to the bus yard and taught the bus drivers and the aides, this is what happens, and this is where the dog's going to sit. And, you have to think about all those, and the dog has to be comfortable and taught those things as well, and in our case, not to be distracted when somebody pets or things like that. We do a lot of training on that as well. So it just depends on your needs too, what you can or want to train the dog on. And, so there's a lot to it.
Yeah. And in that vein, a question that did come in that really I like insight from both of you, because it's two different situations, I would think, is, Angela, how does the general upkeep of the dog get taken care of? I don't know, because is Stryder, I maybe assuming wrongly, but he's not the one that's technically walking or picking up the poop and doing all of that. Yeah. But he is lucky enough to have family around him. And then on the flip side of that, Kristin, if you've ever worked with anyone, if they don't have someone else with them, how does that work in both situations? Angela, how does just that general upkeep of the dog happen?
So usually, the dog's going to get groomed, at a groomer or whatnot anyway. And so we actually do use funds to get them go to the same place, both dogs all the time,
And
their
you
whole
mean your
life.
Help Hope Live campaign?
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
That's something
So
we can help anyone fundraise toward with their Healthy
yeah,
Life campaign.
yeah, yeah. So we're able to, do that. As far as picking up poop and things like that. At school, the dogs, we've been very fortunate. Neither dog has ever gone to the bathroom while
Wow.
they're working or on plane rides or anything, but you want to be prepared and have those things there ready to clean up in case, because dogs are dogs. And,
Yeah.
so you want to have, we do puppy pads every time we fly, as long, and Lysol wipes and a little spray as well, because we want to make sure if it does happen. We've never had it happen at school.
Amazing.
Um, he doesn't need to take either dog out potty during those hours. They won't go. Neither one won't go, but
Wow.
they will go if we say go potty, things like that. So we do try and take them out, but for whatever reason, we've been fortunate, and neither of our dogs have ever gone in public. And we have areas out back at our house. We live in a townhome, and there's kind of a dog area back there and stuff. And she just goes out there, and then I clean it up after. He does not do any of that stuff.
And Kristin, have you had any other experiences or just individuals
Yeah.
that maybe don't have a loved one around them and how they're handling working with a service dog?
So within the industry, the dogs are trained to go to the bathroom on command. They start learning that the commands are anything from better go now, find your spot. There's all sorts of phrases. Remember, dogs don't, they just need a sound that they, or a signal to tell them that that's an appropriate time. They are trained to go on leash. Service dogs are not off leash unless they're in fenced in areas. So most service dogs go to the bathroom in public when instructed. My dogs go to the bathroom before we get on the airplane. They were using outdoor places. We're, giving them opportunities. Most of us are trained that every time you go into a building, you give them an opportunity to go before they go into the building and after you come out of the building. They won't go every time because you're probably going in and out of buildings more frequently than they need to go. Many dogs do defecate on a regular cycle based on how they're fed. So depending on your living, depending on how you live, will depend on how that defecation happens. I will tell you that whether you are using a guide dog because you're fully lost your sight or you're legally blind, those dogs and you are trained to be able to pick up in public. You don't have to be able to see it, but you do have to be able to find it. And the dogs and the people are trained on how to do that together. I have friends who are in wheelchairs who have modified pooper scoopers that collapse and go
Nice.
underneath their wheelchairs so that they're picking up after their dogs in public. I know people who are using services that come to their homes to pick up after their dogs, on a daily or weekly basis in a fenced in area in their home. It's a paid service in those cases. It So much of it depends on working with a responsible training program or trainer that can adapt to your abilities and to your resources. So right now we're talking about pooping and such, but which is because it's probably the one that's like most like, ooh, how do you do that? Right. But we're also talking about grooming. How do
Yeah.
you brush your dog? Do you need a different kind of, does your hand need a different kind of brush? Do you need to go to a professional groomer, or is this something you can be taught to do at home? I have a client who grooms one toenail every single day on her dog. So every single, she just rotates through because for her, she can do one toenail at a time and she just keeps working all the way around. Other people use groomers. We brush their teeth. All of that, feeding stations. How is the dog fed? Do you have help? Sometimes it's a family member, sometimes it's a PCA that's coming in and doing some prep for you so that you can take care of as much of that as possible. But that is all part of finding the right trainer or training program to work with based on what your needs are, because it's not just about the skill set that the dog has. It's about the personality. You talked about the two different personalities in the dogs you've had. I'm preparing for dog number 4. You'll see a lot of things that are very similar between my successful dogs because of what they need to do for me, but they've all got their own little thing, right? How do they exist in the world? How do we move through? How do we deal with equipment? Can we do Velcro straps? Can we do clips? all of that becomes very customized to the individual, not just the skill set.
And now,
I
Kristin, you
want,
used the phrase, sorry, Angela, I just wanted, and I don't know if you meant it intentionally, but you said successful dogs. Have you had
Yes.
unsuccessful dogs?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. So industry-wide, and it doesn't matter whether you get your dog from a training program or whether you're doing owner assist. And again, owner assist means you own the dog and you're involved in the training process. The best chance any dog has is 50-50. So a minimum of 50% of the dogs in the industry that are trying to be service dogs will fail. My first 2 dogs were program trained dogs, and I don't know how many dogs failed before I got those 2, because when you deal with a program, you just meet the ones that succeed. My 3rd dog was an owner assist. He was successful. I had a failure after that who is now 3 years old and is happily doing something else for someone else, but not for me. And I have just started a fourth puppy who I hope will become successful, but the odds don't change. I had one failure, it doesn't mean I'm going to have a success now. It's each individual dog has a 50% chance.
Yeah.
Period.
That's just an interesting insight for sure. And I'm sorry to cut you off, Angela. What were you going to say?
oh no, that's fine. I was talking about the potty situation. One thing that has come up, we use Go Potty, and Keebler would go anywhere. And because we travel to bigger cities, a lot of times there's no grass, and so that's one thing you have to train them to do is go potty anywhere on the sidewalk or whatnot. And so Nestle had never done it. She was young, and we had to walk like a mile to find a little spot. And then she realized just after the second time, Keebler did it on the sidewalk. She now, so that's just one thing you have to think about too. It doesn't matter where you say go potty, they have to be able to go potty anywhere.
And Kristin, I know people call you guys at Canines for Disabled Kids to gather resources. One of the questions that came in was if there is a list of reputable service dog agencies, or do you just have to do what Angela did and start Googling? What is the best way for, before people even get to you, what are they doing? How are they even finding you?
So they're
not finding you and finding someone else.
Right. So they're finding us either by word of mouth or by Google searches and such. We tend to come up pretty heavily towards the top, fortunately.
Yeah.
I will say this, that there's a lot out there. And it's sometimes hard to tell the good guys from the not as good guys. And there are some people out there who are just bad. I mean, there's always going to be that level of things. As far as service dog organizations go, there's a couple of things I would say. One, first of all, please reach out to us. We're happy. We vetted, we have over 200 training programs in our list, and we're going to make sure that we connect you with ones that can do what you need. Another reputable source for assistance dogs, service dogs, and this is actually worldwide, is an organization called Assistance Dogs International. They are also a nonprofit. They're a voluntary group, though. So training programs do not have to join them. I like to say there's more good apples in that bushel than bad, but again, it's not a perfect system. And you can have some really wonderful organizations that are training or trainers that are training that are not part of that group. So finding a reputable organization can be difficult. But we would love to give you some tools to help you determine if you're working with an organization that you feel good about. But really, those are the only 2 resources that I can give you that are doing any kind of vetting on the training programs that they're putting into lists like that.
And so the next question that was posed to us, it's as if they were reading my mind. I wanted to get into the conversation around financial strain and what that looks like. And I know, Angela, you guys have been fundraising through us. What does that look like? Getting the service dog, what are any so I guess 2 different questions almost. Angela, from your end point, getting a service dog, what were any financial expenses on your end? And then Kristin, does your organization have a financial aspect to using your consultation? Angela, if you want to go first and answer any of the financial that you've gone through.
Yeah. So like I said, when we got Keebler, it was a long time ago. The fundraising was a lot different. I wish we had Help Hope Live back then. I think it would have made things a little easier. But then when we got Nestle, I was planning on going through an organization again. But and as you start going through the process, people are always wanting to donate dogs, and we have this dog, it'd be great, but so I usually vet them and research, make sure that they have all these things, and 99% of the time they don't, or the dogs won't meet our needs the way we need. And with Nestle, we did get her through somebody who raises and breeds for service dogs. I made sure to go through and ask and this and that. And then it was not just, they gave her to us for free, but you still
Wow.
have to fundraise for all the training and all of just everything, the vet bills. Things don't stop just because you have a service dog and you don't need any more money in the end. It doesn't work that way. So we're constantly um, fundraising for that. I stop for a little while and then I go back. Okay, I know that we're going to need this, this, and this, so we do more fundraising and things. And Help Hope Live has just been a great organization. They reimburse, or they've sent money directly to the trainers, or vets, things like that. And it's been so easy for us. We've been fortunate to be able to raise quite a bit in both instances. Um, but it takes a lot of work. But it's something that shouldn't stop you from getting a service dog just because it costs a lot of money. That's what any dog is going to do. You still have to pay, whether you're training it, whether owner assist or an organization. They cost a lot of money. So fundraising is always going to be a part of it, if you want to do it right, which I hope you do. So yeah, but
And while you're talking on the subject, can you go into any specifics of what types of fundraisers you guys have done? Just to give ideas
yes,
to people, because I know we talk about fundraising. Obviously, I talk about it every single day, and that can
yeah.
seem very daunting to people and means a lot of different things to people. So, what did it mean to you guys?
So when we were fundraising for Keebler, we did a lot differently than what we're doing now. But because we did like a spaghetti dinner and an auction when we did his. I haven't done a whole lot of the same kind of fundraisers with
Yeah.
Nestle. I think it's become easier because we're using Help Hope Live. People know that they're giving money to an organization that is not, we're not using the money for, to buy a new car or something. So
Yeah.
people trust it a lot more.
Okay.
We've had other people that have run a lot of fundraisers, people that we didn't know, our family has never helped us, which is pretty common in a lot of fundraising. So we write letters and we
Yeah.
did some business cards, and there's events around town, just anything where they, hey, can I set up a booth? And, you get donations that way. And we don't ever take money directly. And part of that, what we've done because of Help Hope Live is have the other people be in charge of it. So then people tend to just give more when they know it's not going directly to the person and you don't know what it's going to be used for. So it's been really successful for us. I haven't really had to do a whole lot.
It's
um,
amazing. Always
yeah,
good for us to hear as well.
yeah,
We try our best to make it as easy as possible for everyone involved, but I know fundraising can seem daunting. So the practicalities of it are, I'm glad to hear that you guys have had a good
yeah.
community around you.
Yeah, yeah. And we live in a small town. Well, we live in Bend, so it's kind of, it's growing and stuff, but it's not,
Yeah.
like the bigger cities where, you have a lot of resources and stuff. So, like I said, we've set up booths at car lots, when they're having fairs or grand openings, or just some random things, and we have people word of mouth that just, hey, they made up a whole bunch of flyers and they just hand them out or leave them on restaurant tables, or things like that. You have to be pretty creative, and it is a hard work, and it's not for everybody. So I know I didn't know how to fundraise, so I asked for help
Yeah.
and was like, I can't do this. Do you know how? And had
Yeah.
other people that were good at it.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And Kristin, from your point of view, I'm not sure if Canines for Disabled Kids have fees, or what do you know about training fees in general with the programs that you work with?
So it will cost you between $35,000 and $55,000 to train a service dog. It's about a 2-year period to do
Train
that.
them the right way, right?
To train them right, to train them successfully
Yeah.
and correctly, it will cost you between $35,000 and $55,000 per dog. Now, depending on what pathway you take will depend on how much of that is out of pocket cost, how much of that is sweat labor. I mean, you're talking about that, right? We're talking about fundraising, that's sweat labor that you're putting in. You're talking, if you're working owner assist, you're actually handling the dogs at different points. That's sweat labor. You're working with training programs. That might not be as much sweat labor on the dog side, but it's fundraising side and things like that. Training programs are working very hard to pass as little of that cost on. So your reputable training programs are anywhere from 0 cost for the training of the dog, not travel expenses or anything like that, but training costs, to about $24,000. Okay.
So, and that's what, if I needed a service dog, that is what would be expected to come out of my pocket.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So, and they don't, in all honesty, these training programs, they don't want you to do it out of pocket. They want you to fundraise. And I'm going to tell you that
I just meant that what I would be responsible for in whatever manner.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But the reason I say it that way is because, and Angela's experienced this, which is why it's easier for her now.
Yeah.
The more you can educate your community about this new tool that's coming in, and you can use those fundraising opportunities to do that, the better support you'll have and the more successful your partnership will be. So we work with people, as I said earlier, we recommend everybody get a Help Hope Live account started, because I do not want you working with fundraising sources that are not nonprofit. I don't want this to potentially hit your income. I don't want this to potentially impact if you're on disability or have other resources that are income based. I don't want the fundraising you're doing to negatively impact those things. I don't want.
You've been listening to everything I've been telling you all these years. Thank you. Thank you.
We're on the same page here.
Yes.
But I want this to be transparent. And Angela was talking about that. The more transparent and open you are, the more your donors are able to support you. And that includes businesses that need to donate to a 501c3. They need the tax deduction. They want the transparency. So whether you're doing, and we produce a list of ideas for people, but they should use them in conjunction. So we've had families do everything from duck races, down slide things in the backyard, to making little dog houses, piggy banks out of milk cartons, and asking businesses if they can leave them for change. Restaurants that will do nights where you drive everybody. That's like a reverse coupon.
Percentage of sales nights. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And our organization does scholarships as well for people under the age who receive their dogs before they turn 18.
Nice.
So we have a lot of different things. We help to come up with ideas. We share ideas, but all of those things, the more transparent they are, the more you're willing to talk about what your needs are, and the more open you are. I will tell you that I fundraised for my first service dog. It was a long time ago, so it was $6,500 I needed to fundraise for my very first one. And I had donations that ranged from $2, individual donations that ranged from $2 to $1,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Most of them were somewhere in between. They were spaghetti suppers. They were, all sorts of, different things, letter writing campaigns. You have to do it all. You really have to do it all.
I tell everyone I meet with that it's that exact thing, where when individuals are fundraising for their Help Hope Live, in honor of their Help Hope Live campaigns, there's truly no fundraiser too big or too small. We have had clients have very successful yard sales and bake sales and craft sales online. And we've had clients have very successful annual golf outings. So, and very successful annual letter writing campaigns. So fundraising doesn't need to be that major event that might seem scary and really fancy. Whatever is going to pique the interest of your community.
Yeah, we've done a lot of media, whether the news, newspaper, magazines, everything. did the golf thing. We've done everything between the two dogs, and like you said, it's helped because we did the media, especially the first time. The community knows us, and like you said, we are very transparent. We are we're just very honest about everything and where the money's going and things like that. It does help. And it's not easy. I do not like doing any of the media things, but you do it over and over and you just go through it, and you know, I don't ever get used to it, but fundraising, you have to keep doing it.
You have to do it.
Yeah.
You have, and to your point earlier, so 55, say at the high end, $55,000 gets you a finished, successful 2-year-old dog. Okay. Now you have to maintain that.
Yeah.
And so we recommend, and we draw numbers from the ASPCA and then bump them a little bit. Okay. Because you're going to spend more caring for a service animal than you are going to spend for the majority, for what most people do on a pet. Not that people are not taking good care of their pets. They are. It's just these animals require a little bit more. They're going to get the extra vaccinations. They're going to get the extra care, the extra grooming, because they're in public so much. So we do recommend that you buffer between $150 and $200 a month to be able to maintain your service animal. And that will, that's vet costs and things that maybe don't happen every month, but over the course of the year will run you between $150 and $200 a month on average.
Yeah. The one thing too, once you start going public, some organizations will give you free vet services and things like that. But again,
or
you have to be, yeah.
You have to be open about that.
Yeah.
Discounted services. You do have to license your service animal in your communities. They do need a dog license. Most communities, if you document your service animal according to how the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, requires that you can answer and verbally document your animal. Most communities, that's a zero charge for your animal, so that you want to do those things. It's not, you want to take advantage of those discounts or those support pieces that people are giving you in your community when you can. Just recognize when you're doing your budgeting at the end of the year that went into your budget, right? That you don't say, oh, it only cost me $100 because I get all this for free. Well, no, it cost you the $200 and you had some generous supporters, and you want to acknowledge that and
because it might not be covered next year. So you don't want to lose that line item off your budget.
I had that. I'll tell you. So as I said, I'm preparing for dog number 4. Everybody keep your fingers crossed for me. But my first and second dogs, when I had my first and second dogs, I had an incredibly generous supporter who provided all of my flea and tick and all of my heartworm medications for both dogs. And I have large breed dogs for their life, for both of those dogs for life. That did not happen with dog number 3. That's a big chunk to start paying for.
Even with Keebler, we had a vet in the small town where we lived at the time offer free vet services for life, promise no matter what. And then they got new owners and we didn't get told until, you go there and then you're like, oh, you owe us $300 for this.
You're like, ouch, right?
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
So that is,
and there are, I didn't mean to cut you off, Sunny, but there are, sometimes there's an advantage to working with a training program, because some of the training programs have worked out relationships with some providers where you can get discounts on joint care medications, or discounts on food, and those are program by program. There's nothing national across the board like that, but sometimes something might be available because of where you're getting your dog from, versus where somebody else chose to go from. So always be sure to talk to your trainers and your training programs to see if they have any of those discounts that they can pass on to you.
So as we are nearing the close of our hour, as we knew it would, the conversation has flown by because this is just such great conversation and information. Would either of you like to share one piece of advice or something if someone were to come to you today saying we're looking into getting our first service dog? What would you tell that person? And any piece of advice for anyone out there?
For me, I think Oh, sorry,
Oh,
go
no,
ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead. You go first. Go ahead.
I think for me, the biggest piece of advice, and I was told this in the beginning, don't let money be the reason that you don't go forward with a service dog. That seems to be a big stopper for people. It's hard work, but it can be done. With Keebler, we raised enough to get him. At the time, it was $13,000. That organization now, I think, is $18,000 or 20, somewhere there. And we were able to do it actually in one evening. So that was, and Nestle, we were just doing it slow and steady, the training and stuff. We just do fundraisers as they come, and it happens.
Kristin?
So I always say let money be the tiebreaker. Don't let it be the driver. Let it be the tiebreaker. But I also say you deserve this. You deserve a high quality tool. Do not sacrifice. Do not say they're good enough. Do not say it's okay to get something that's less than 100%. These animals should be being tested and they should be getting all 100s on all their tests. And if they don't, they shouldn't be service animals. Don't think that you're not disabled enough. Don't think that somebody else deserves this more than you do, because that's not what this is about. This is about living the most accessible, high quality life that you can. And don't put roadblocks in your way, whether it's money or, that you think somebody else is more deserving than you are. Take the step, start the investigation, and to Angela's point, do it piece by piece. It doesn't have to be done all at one time.
Well, thank you, ladies. I really appreciate your insights today. If anyone out there is ever at any of the abilities expos all over the country, Kristin is always there with Canines for Disabled Kids. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Help Hope Live at helphopelive.org. I'm sure I'm volunteering you, but Angela would probably be more than happy to speak to any of you if you have any questions on a firsthand basis, and for Kristin as well. So thank you everyone for joining us and for watching, and hope to catch you on the next Hope Talk in 2025. Thank you guys. Have a great day and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.